On today's episode of Behind the Wire, Washington is doubling down on sanctuary policies. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Behind the Wire on Rebel Radio. I am your host and the president of Washington 3%, Robert Burwell. And today we're talking about our state's ever expanding idiocy into the realm of sanctuary state. So, according to this article, let's see. Washington state lawmakers have introduced two sweeping bills, Senate Bill 5906 and Senate Bill 5852, that together would create one of the most expansive sanctuary-style systems in the country. These bills are being sold as data protection and worker dignity. But when you read the fine print, a very different picture emerges. What these bills actually do is build a statewide enforcement resistance infrastructure, a system designed to prevent federal immigration authorities from accessing information, facilities, or individuals across nearly every major public-facing institution in Washington. These bills will completely reshape how the state interacts with federal law. So they're going to start off with Senate Bill 5906, turning public institutions into enforcement-free zones. Senate Bill 5906 stretches across 5 major sectors of public life: early learning, K-12 schools, healthcare, higher education, and even election offices. The bill's central idea is simple but far-reaching. These institutions may not cooperate with federal immigration enforcement unless agents present a judicial warrant. A standard federal law does not require for civil immigration actions. So what they're requiring is now the agents have to have a judicial warrant to go into any of these places and to basically do their job. And under federal law, that is not required. So we'll get into that in a minute. So basically what this means is child care centers cannot share information or allow access. Schools cannot disclose records or permit immigration officers into non-public areas. Hospitals and clinics must route all immigration-related inquiries through legal counsel and deny access to treatment areas. Colleges must issue campus-wide alerts when immigration enforcement is present. Campus-wide alerts. Isn't that wonderful? Election offices must treat ballot processing areas as off-limits to federal immigration. Each of these sectors becomes a protected zone where federal immigration enforcement is slowed, blocked, or rerouted through layers of state-mandated procedures. Good Lord, I can't read tonight. To the average citizen, this might sound abstract, but the practical effect is straightforward. Washington is creating a system where federal immigration authorities cannot do their jobs without navigating a maze of state-imposed barriers. So, now, what we're talking about here is in order for federal agents under federal law to go into these places for civil immigration actions, there is no warrant required under federal law. Washington is trying to supersede federal law with their own laws that makes them basically get a warrant and jump through all these hoops to do their job and to enforce immigration law. And, so we're going to see there'll be a clash between federal and local authorities on jurisdiction, and I'm sure the federal government will win because federal law supersedes state law, and this is just a desperate attempt by the lunatic Democrats in this state to protect illegal migrants. Now, there's one point on here which is really important, and that is the election offices must treat ballot processing areas as off limits to federal immigration. Why is that included? One of the most shocking parts of Senate Bill 5906 is Section 6, which applies these sanctuary rules to election offices. County auditors must deny immigration enforcement access to ballot handling areas unless agents present a judicial warrant. This raises an obvious question. Why would immigration enforcement ever need access to ballot processing areas if non-citizens cannot legally vote? Well, that's pretty damn easy. They're going to list some things here, but I'm going to tell you straight up. The reason they want to do that is because illegals are voting in Washington state, okay? When you get a driver's license in Washington state, you are automatically registered to vote in this state. And we know that Washington gives licenses to illegal immigrants. So we know they are getting ballots and they are voting in our state elections. That's no mystery. We know what's happening. And that's one reason why the state is also fighting the federal government so hard on turning over our voter rolls, because they've been cheating. They've been doing it for decades, and they're trying to not get caught. And this is just another step to try and hide the fact that illegals are voting in the state and they are affecting our elections. And that is a violation of federal law. Illegal immigrants, non-citizens, cannot vote in federal elections. State elections, they leave that up to the state. But federal elections, illegal. And it's happening in Washington. It's been happening for years. And this will all play out. And Washington's going to get caught with their pants down. We know they are. But that's one reason why they're trying to pass this, so they can't go in there and see those voter rolls. But the reasons the article gives, they say the bill never answers this question. It doesn't need to. Here's what we know. Federal agencies sometimes investigate cases where non-citizens are mistakenly or fraudulently registered. They're not mistakenly registered. They are registered. When they get a license, they are automatically registered in this state. So they are fraudulently being registered to vote in this state. That's the reason why, if you want to travel anywhere or do anything, you have to get an enhanced license from Washington state, because nobody else regards our state driver's license as legitimate, because they're allowing illegals to get licenses in this state. So we have to buy this enhanced license, which I think I paid $72 for 5 years ago when I got my license renewed, because I needed to go someplace. And I just got my bill. My license is due. It has now gone up to $177 to have an enhanced license, because they want to give illegal immigrants licenses. I have to have an enhanced license to do some of the traveling I have to do. And it's gone up in price ridiculously, because they can't manage their money, and they're taxing everything into oblivion. And I just found out they're doing it to licenses too. I couldn't believe $177 to renew my license. When I first got my license, it was $5. So that tells you a little bit how old I am. But I mean, that's just ridiculous. But anyways, getting back to the point. Voter rolls, signature files, and ballot envelopes contain information that could reveal identity discrepancies, right? And there was people using the names of dead people and things like that, for their illegal identities to hide from our federal immigration enforcement. Sometimes they get the identity of a deceased person, that type of thing. That's what they're worried about seeing. Election offices are one of the few places where citizenship status intersects with state-maintained records. So, and they don't want the federal government to see that. By restricting access, Senate Bill 5906 makes it harder for federal authorities to investigate potential irregularities. This means even less transparency and less cooperation between state and federal systems, even in areas as sensitive as elections. So, yeah, since when do states not cooperate with federal law, right? Only now that federal law is actually being enforced, now they don't want to cooperate. Why would they not want to cooperate with federal laws being enforced? Because they're breaking federal law. That's why. And, these bills, again, they're being proposed this session. And given the demo dummies supermajority in our House and Senate, they'll probably go through. Because they don't believe in election integrity or anything like that. They just believe in whatever it takes to win. That's what they've been doing in the state for years. Just going all the way back to, was that Christine Gregoire against, who was that? Dino Rossi? They just kept finding votes until she won. He was ahead. And they just magically kept finding all these votes just out of nowhere. Oh, we found another type of votes. Counted. Oh, she still didn't win. Oh, we found more votes. Counted again. Still didn't win. Oh, we found some more. Oh, she won. Okay, that's it. We ain't gonna find no more votes. They did the same thing. Excuse me, my throat is just scratchy as heck all of a sudden. They've done the same thing many times in local elections. They did it with Kashama Sawant in the city council election a few years back. They just kept finding votes until she won. She was losing, but they just kept finding votes until she won. Yeah, they do it all the time, especially King County. And that's where they found all the votes for the Christine Gregoire thing, too. They just magically kept finding votes, finding ballots that hadn't been counted yet. So, that's one of the reasons they don't want federal agents to be able to look at that stuff. Anyways, so that's the first bill. That's Senate Bill 5906. The next one is Senate Bill 5852. This is the Workplace Shield. And this came out just days before Senate Bill 5906. They introduced Senate Bill 5852, the Immigrant Worker Protection Act. This bill focuses on the workplace and it's justice sweeping. Under Senate Bill 5852, if an employer receives notice of an I-9 audit from federal authorities, the employer must. So these are private employers. They must notify every current worker within 72 hours so that all the illegal ones can take off and go hide. They need to notify every worker who has been employed in the last 3 years. So even if they're still not working with them, they have to notify them that ICE is coming for them. I don't know about you, but if employers are warning illegals that ICE is coming after them, isn't that obstruction of federal agents? I think so. Kind of putting these guys in a bad position, aren't they? They have to provide copies of the federal notice to each affected worker. So when they are served with the I-9 audit, they have to make a bunch of copies and hand them out to all their workers so they can see what's going on and they can make plans to run. They must provide instructions on how to correct deficiencies. In other words, if the employer notices something like, oh, this paperwork is obviously fake, this is obviously not your real identity, this is what you can do to fix that so you can hopefully get away with pretending to be someone you're not. Yeah, they have to basically give instructions to the illegal immigrants that are working for them on on whatever they have in their file that will be caught by immigration and cause them to be pursued and arrested. So they have to show them what the problems are so they can hopefully fix them in time for ICE to come knocking on their door. They also have to allow workers to bring representation to any meeting. So if they have a big, all hands meeting to disseminate this information about the I-9 audit coming in, They have to allow their illegal immigrant workers to bring their attorneys into the meeting in their workplace with them. Can't make this shit up. I mean, this is just ridiculous. But, you know, everything they do is ridiculous. So, yeah, anyways. And they also have to post multilingual notices statewide. So if some big company that has places all over the state, they have to post multilingual notices at every property that they work out of across the state. And critically, employers may not voluntarily cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. They cannot voluntarily hand over worker records. They cannot voluntarily allow access to non-public areas. They cannot impose verification requirements beyond federal law. So, say you're an actual law-abiding business owner in Washington State. Okay, you don't knowingly hire illegal immigrants to work in your business. And by some measure, you happen to find out you have an illegal immigrant working at your company. And, you know, you believe in federal law. You believe in legal immigration, not illegal immigration. So you want to say, hey, ICE, I got this guy with a fake ID. I just figured out he's not a legal citizen. He's an illegal immigrant. Well, if they do that, they're violating state law and can face penalties for that. For simply following federal law and doing the right thing, they can now be punished under Senate Bill 5952 for doing the right thing and following federal law. Now, what happens if they do that? If they do, the penalties are staggering, up to $10,000 per employee for repeat violation. They can be fined $10,000 for doing that. Senate Bill 5952 creates a state-mandated early warning system for illegal workers. That's what it does. I mean, you know, if it's a state-mandated early warning system. If you get told as an employer that you're getting an I-9 audit, boom, it's, you know, emergency notifications have to go out to tell these people to run and to hide. That is not legal under federal law. I mean, you know, that is, you know, helping to hide or conceal an illegal immigrant, which is against federal law. So that puts the employer in a pickle, doesn't it? It's either you violate federal law or you violate state law. Either way, you're going to get hammered, right? You are. It's putting them in an impossible position. And that's going to backfire on the state. And I'll explain that in a minute. So here's what that looks like in real life. Reduced cooperation with federal law enforcement. Schools, hospitals, election offices, employees will be required to deny or delay cooperation with federal immigration authorities unless judicial warrant is present. This is a higher standard than federal law requires. Again, they're superseding federal law. You can't do that. Increased administrative costs. Public institutions will need new training, new reporting systems, new legal review processes, and new compliance structures. Taxpayers will have to foot that bill, which they don't care. You know, I mean, just throw money around. It's our money. They don't care, right? Oh, we got to train our employees on these new stupid laws we passed. Well, just up the taxes some more. That's what we do in Washington. Early warning systems built into public institutions, from child care centers to college campuses to workplaces. These bills create mechanisms that notify individuals when federal immigration enforcement is nearby or when audits are coming. So again, that is obstruction, right? You are aiding and abetting illegal immigrants in hiding from federal authorities. Unequal treatment under the law. Individuals here illegally receive state-mandated protections, notifications, and legal coaching. Law-abiding citizens do not receive equivalent protections in any context. But hey, you know, that's the Washington way, right? We, you know, our protected classes, they get extra rights that the rest of us don't have. They get extra rights, extra help that the rest of us don't have. And you people still vote for them. And it builds a statewide sanctuary infrastructure. Senate Bill 5852 protects the labor pipelines. Senate Bill 5906 protects the institutions families interact with. Together, they form a comprehensive enforcement-resistant system. This is very much a coordinated strategy. So the bigger picture on this is Washington is going to be a national test case on this. Different blue states do this, but they become the test case. And, if these do pass, and they they do pass, they will spread to other blue states. These two bills, Senate Bill 5852 and Senate Bill 5906, are likely to become templates for similar legislation in Oregon, California, Colorado, Minnesota, and beyond. If these bills pass, Washington will become the first state to build a multi-sector sanctuary architecture that touches nearly every part of public life. And once that infrastructure is in place, it will be extremely difficult to unwind. So, this is what they're proposing this upcoming legislative session. And as I said, it is the one bill is putting employers in a bad predicament, right? If they cooperate with federal authorities, the state will fine them. If they don't cooperate with federal authorities, they could be guilty of obstruction under federal law. So they're in a possible situation. So what would you do if you're an employer, right? And you're faced with, if I have illegal immigrants as employees, and ICE comes knocking, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. I'm screwed, right? So what would you do as an employer? You would not hire illegals. You wouldn't want to be put in that position that the state is going to put these people in who've been employing these illegal immigrants, okay? Now, Washington, they like the fact that these employers are hiring illegal immigrants, and the employers like it because they don't have to pay them as much, because they can't do nothing without raising a red flag on themselves and getting deported. So they just quietly accept, less pay, less benefits, whatever, and the employer gets away with basically having slaves. But now that they're getting put in this impossible position, they're going to rethink that type of hiring practice. You know what it's going to lead to? It's going to lead to a bunch of unemployed illegal immigrants in our state, because nobody's going to want to employ them, because they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. So these sanctuary policies are actually going to hurt the illegals, because they aren't going to be able to work anymore, which is not an intended consequence of this bill, but it's good. That's what's going to happen. So, yay, Dems, you're really helping out the illegals. Congratulations. You're all going to be unemployed because of your stupid laws you're trying to pass. You don't think about things like that, but that's what's going to happen. That's an unintended consequence, and I think it's a pretty good consequence myself. But the other consequence of that, which is going to suck for us here in Washington State, is if these people can't get a job, they're going to be living off of our tax dollars, which a large number of them already do. But the few that are working probably going to end up losing their jobs. And because we're a sanctuary city, us taxpayers are going to end up footing that bill. We already are in a deficit from hell. We're out of revenue. We're underwater. They keep raising our taxes, but they can't keep up with the money they're giving away. And this is just one more thing they're going to have to pay to take care of these illegals that they love so much on our dime. So other things we need, like, I don't know, dikes to keep all of our valleys from flooding, or fixing our roads, which are just a disaster. We won't have money for that, because we're going to be taking care of illegal immigrants who can no longer get a job because they pass these laws that puts the employers in a double jeopardy situation. They're damned if they do, damned if they don't. So great job, Democrats. You're really thinking on this one, aren't you? You people, they never think nothing through. They come up with these feel-good plans. We're going to protect these people. You're going to protect them right into unemployment and onto the public assistance payroll. That's what you're going to do with these laws. And us poor taxpayers who work our whole lives, follow the law, we got to take care of them, because that makes you feel better. You feel better about yourself. You're protecting these people, and we get to foot the bill for it. Thank you very much, Democrats. I just really hope, I really, really hope that the people who are voting for these morons get hit the hardest with the taxes that we're going to get nailed with when these people can't work anymore and are on public assistance. But I doubt it, because most of their supporters are, activists and idiots who don't actually do nothing for a living. But welcome to Washington. That's all I can say. So if this makes you mad, I hope it does. Tell your favorite Democrat what's going on here and what the consequences are going to be. The fact that it's just going to increase the role of people who are on assistance in our state with these protections for these people. Tell them their tax money is going to go up for these feel-good laws. That'll wake very many of them up, but some of them are starting to get a little fed up with the taxes, and maybe they'll wake up a little bit from this, because this is going to be a disaster. Like everything else the Democrats do, it's going to be a disaster, and it's going to end up costing us more money, like everything they do does. That's all I have on this subject, and like I always say, you want to know more about us here at Washington 3%, you can go to our website, wa3%.org. You can also go there to check out our charity that helps veterans and communities in need. It's bootsonthehomeground.org, and it's also linked on our website. And a special announcement on that, at the current time, we have received a brand new $7,000 wheelchair that's designed for somebody who's a paraplegic or quadriplegic. It's one that is it's kind of narrow. It's brand new, never been used, but it has the headrest, to support their head. It can be fully reclined. Really, really nice chair. We received this as a donation, and we are currently looking for somebody we can give it to. Somebody who really needs it. So if you know somebody who really needs it, who we can give it to, go ahead and go to our website. You can send us an email there and let us know. As far as our prepping tip of the day, we're going to talk about water. In times of emergency, water can be a big issue. And water is something that you need. Something you absolutely have to survive, right? Now everybody thinks, oh, we live here in the Pacific Northwest. There's water everywhere. Yeah, there is water everywhere. If you drink untreated water, you can make yourself sick. You make yourself sick, okay? You're not going to keep any food down or anything like that. You're not going to be able to do anything, and it can kill you if you get the wrong type of bacteria. Now, back in the day, we could drink out of creeks and things, because we did all the time and we had an immunity built up. But here in our sterile world we live in, with our treated water, we don't have the immunity built up to things that you can get out of our water system. So a couple things. Water. At minimum, you need to have 2 weeks worth of drinking water stored for an emergency. Now, this is just for main emergencies. We're not going to go into the full prepping thing very much. But for emergency, you need at least 2 weeks of water, period. Because that's how long the government would take to even start getting you bottled water, is 2 weeks. And that's if they're really being efficient. And if it's a really bad emergency, like caused by a Cascadia earthquake event, all infrastructure will be gone. You're going to need water to last you a lot longer than that. So you need to start looking into filter systems. There's a lot of good filter systems where if you have a water source nearby, you can get the water running through filter system. If you can't get water, if you can't get a filtering system, you can at least boil it. I hope everybody knows that if you boil it, you can make it drinkable, right? It'll kill everything. You can drink it. But anyways, you need at least 2 weeks of water, right? Okay. And that's just drinking water to survive. Now, what about your toilets and stuff, right? If there's no more water flowing, right? Especially people who live on wells and don't have a manual backup for that, or a way to power their electric well pump, you have no water to your house. You can't flush your toilets, right? You need to have some way to get water to flush your toilets in this type of situation, right? Unless you just want to go out in the woods. Because you can't flush your toilet, you can't use it, right? So you're going to be going outside, or you need to have some way to have water. There's lots of ways you can have water. There are some cities who have ordinances against water catchment systems, which basically are barrels underneath your downspouts that catch rainwater. Some cities have now passed ordinances against that, which is just ridiculous. But if you are someplace where you can do that, you need to set up a catchment system so you can have that type of water to flush your toilet, do things you need to do, right? If you don't have a water source nearby, like a creek or a lake or something. Other things you can do, you can, besides storing water, you should really store enough water to get you like a month. That's my personal opinion, but 2 weeks is a minimum for drinking. But for other type of water, if you don't have a water source nearby, those big white plastic tanks, they have like the little cage around them. You can get one of those cheap, fill it up with water, and just have that on standby. Now again, drinking out of it depends on what it originally had in it, and how long the water's been in there. But if you have one of those and you fill it up, you have bottled drinking water drinking, you have that thing filled up, you can use that to get your water to flush your toilets, things like that. That should get you through most short-term things. Unfortunately, when you're talking long-term, you got to get a lot more creative than that, and you have to actually live someplace where you have access to water. And that's going to put a lot of people in the bind if it's a major event, but that's where you may have to consider bugging out and leaving your home in a major event. But that's getting way outside. We're just talking for general prepping purposes. You want to have at least minimum 2 weeks worth of drinking water, and you also want to have some source of water for flushing your toilets so you can maintain a fairly sanitary condition in your home until the power comes back on or whatever happened gets corrected. And that's our tip for today about water. And again, filter systems are important. If you have access to water that's in a creek, a river, or lake, you want to have a good filter system. And at bare minimum, if you don't, you need to boil it before you drink it. And with that, that's all I have to say for today. And we'll see you next time on Behind the Wire here on Rebel Radio. Good night.